everyone, good morning. You're watching Market Fatafat right here on ET Now. I'm Mubina Kapasi. Markets continue their downward journey. In fact, very briefly today, on an intraday basis, we even gave up the 11,000 mark. So in the 10,000 range is where the market did head towards. Very briefly, there was an instant recovery. However, it's very clear that the sentiment on the street currently is very, very negative. Back above 11,000, of course, at this point of time, but still sitting on losses of about 0.25%. Before we kickstart Market Fatafat with our usual movers and shakers that we will wrap up over the course of the next 20 minutes, it's important to get an update on Mr. VG Siddhartha, who went missing since Monday evening. The Coffee King's body was recovered earlier this morning, putting an end to a massive search operation. The Bengaluru police are at the Cafe Coffee Day headquarters investigating the matter. Rahul Dayama is in fact at the headquarters. Let's go across to him now for more details. Hi, Rahul.
Mubina, that's right. Even as, there is finally a confirmation on VG Siddhartha, the body being found earlier this morning, larger questions about the letter still really remain. We are picking up that there was a police team from Mangaluru that was here a while back to sort of investigate the source of that letter. Was it emailed to the board of directors? Who was it handed over to largely sort of ascertain if the letter is still authentic? Of course, we have seen the Mangaluru DCP last night indicate that the letter was given to them by the family, which sort of largely talks about his troubles with a PE investor, harassment from the tax department, also the fact that a massive liquidity crunch was really impacting the company. As far as an update from the company is concerned, we haven't heard anything. We did see independent director Ranganath go a while back. We are picking up that a board meeting will in fact be held. Some of the board members will join on a conference call to sort of decide the future strategy and update really, because it is really tiring testing times for the company with the man who sort of helmed it for so long is no more right now.
Certainly is very upsetting news, and it has shocked India Inc. And of course the rest of the country as well. Okay, well, let's do one thing. Let's kickstart Market Fatafat then and bring on board our guests who are going to be joining in. We have with us on the technicals Gaurav Ratnaparki of Sharekhan, Kunal Bothra as well joins in, and Vivek Eicher, ET Now's research analyst. So good morning to all of you, and let's kickstart with results that we are expecting this evening, and that is Eicher Motors. Unsurprisingly, there is going to be a fall in the first quarter revenues. 19% decline, in fact, is where the ET Now poll is pegging the revenue degrowth at, amidst the entire decline in the Royal Enfield volumes. This is something that will certainly perturb the street quite a bit. There's also expected to be some margin contraction due to adverse mix and lower scale. So that as well is something you should watch out for. Do remember that we had Hero MotoCorp's numbers, which were not that bad. But today, Eicher, in turn, may see that contraction, something that, the auto industry will have to make do with, because we are in the midst of a long and extended and deep slowdown for the auto sector. Ahead of the numbers, Eicher Motor is higher by 1%. Moving on, Kunal, Coal India, you're seeing that there's the 8th week of consecutive selling in the stock price. What are you observing, and what's your view here?
Mubina, 8th straight week of the stock, witnessing this selling pressure. In the first 2-3 weeks, when the stock started to ebb off, it was more of a mild bit of price correction, more less half a percent to 1%. But then the intensity picked up in terms of the price falling. And, I think the recent fall, which was very sharp in the last week and even this week, where the stock corrected to sub 200 levels yesterday and closed below it. So I sense that, with this 8th week of consecutive selling, generally the indicators go into an oversold or an extremely oversold territory, and that brings in a case of a bounce for the stock price. So I believe Coal India could be into similar, kind of positioning over here. You might see the stock extending the gains which you've seen today. I think 210 to 212 could be the next pivot point for Coal India, and the stock should be able to reach there over the next couple of days.
Well, in today's trading session, it has once again able to rebound above the 200 rupee mark. Vivek, Tech Mahindra came out with its first quarter numbers and the stock is slumping in trade. What were the numbers like?
Well, Mubina, significant miss as far as Tech Mahindra's numbers were concerned. It was a miss across all of the three parameters: revenue, EBITDA, as well as the profitability. Margins was significantly eroded on a year-on-year basis. In fact, you had a whole host of brokerages coming in and cutting in their EPS estimates for the rest of the year. Macquarie, however, has maintained its outperform, reduced the target price to 800 rupees a share. They've gone ahead and lowered their FY20 to 21 EPS by 10.5 to almost 13%. That's a significant downgrade coming in there. And valuations, however, they believe at this point of time are something that is offering a little bit of comfort, which is why they've maintained their buy stance. The stock is taking it on the chin today, down almost 3.5% in the session.
Yeah, big drop seen in the stock price today. Gaurav, today, however, we are seeing a bit of a bounce being attempted by some of these OMCs, BPCL, HPCL. They are managing to gain about 1%. Anything much that you'd read into the charts here?
Yeah, BPCL has witnessed a decent correction over the last couple of months. In terms of Fibonacci retracement, it has retraced 50% of the previous multi-month rally, which was from October to May. The key Fibonacci level, which is around 330, is acting as a good support for the counter. Even the daily momentum indicator is showing positive divergence over here. So this is a good level for the stock to attempt a decent bounce back. From trading perspective, one can initiate a fresh long position over here with stop loss at 328, and target on the upside will be close to Delhi upper Bollinger Band, which is around 372.
All right, that is the recommendation then on BPCL. 372 is a target that, Gaurav is watching out for. And Kunal, Dabur, a lot of these FMCGs are showing some strength, Dabur included. What are you observing here?
So yes, Movina, Dabur has been showing strength, in the last few, weeks as well. I think, it's typical of how the FMCG index generally behaves, or the components of FMCG stocks. They generally tend to behave in a market which is getting very volatile. Selling pressure, is mounted quite strongly. And I believe that the fact that Dabur has been holding on to those 200-day moving averages, the 50-day moving averages, I think is a very positive sign. Now, what the reason for flagging of Dabur is because if you look at the daily charts, the 50 DMA is just about on the verge of breaking the 200-day moving average. This, in technical terms, we call it as a golden crossover event. Now, if the stock, provides this particular, crossover, then you could see the stock breaking out of its mild, consolidation and moving up significantly higher. So I think Dabur should be on traders' radar, especially backed on these technical triggers.
All right, on the technicals, Kunal believes Dabur should be on traders' radar. And Vivek, what's the reason for flagging of BEL?
Well, Bharat Electronics came out with its numbers a couple of days ago. The numbers were something that were a bit of a beat as far as margin trajectory was concerned. And, you've actually had brokerages come out and react to Bharat Electronics. What they're saying, especially Citi, is saying that, they maintained their outperformance, kept the target price almost 21% higher at 121 rupees a share. Now, most importantly, they're talking about the order backlog. And very interestingly, the order backlog for BEL at this point of time is more than 5 times the FY19 total sales. So they're seeing a lot of revenue visibility. Margins, of course, will be a little bit of a concern given the fact that the margins have been capped by the government. However, what they're saying is that at this point of time, valuation comfort is there, as well as what they're saying, the target price is in line with the stock's 13-year trading range, which is why they've maintained their positive stance as far as BEL is concerned.
Okay, that's BEL. It's continuing to gain today as well. It's higher by 0.7%. Gaurav, another stock that's continuing its gaining momentum is Varun Beverages. Anything that you're observing here at 640 rupees?
In case of Varun Beverages, the overall trajectory is clearly positive. However, on the occasions of short-term dips, the stock has been taking support near its daily lower Bollinger Band. The same was witnessed in the last week as well. And currently, the stock is forming a base above its crucial daily moving averages. So looking at overall structure, I think the base formation can continue for some more time. The stock can continue to consolidate in the range of 660 to 630. And once that consolidation is over, the stock can start the next leg on the upside.
Yeah, that's Varun Beverages. It's higher by 0.7%. PNB Housing, that one came out with its first quarter numbers and the street certainly ain't pleased. You have a profit figure which has actually risen very marginally, 284.5 crores versus 255 crore rupees. Okay, it's a 10% rise. And then you have the NI, which as well has risen 466 crores versus 424 crores. But take a look at the provisions. It has come in at 164.2 crores versus just 10 crores in the previous quarter. Sharp rise in the provisions, but it's interesting to know that they've still managed to maintain their profitability. So I think that's encouraging. Stock price, however, taken a beating, down by more than 2%. And Kunal, Amara Raja Batteries, in fact, a few of these names in the auto ancillary space has been on your radar now.
Absolutely, Mubina. And, I think we had flagged off Amara Raja Battery yesterday or day before, on Friday. And I believe that, the stock showed exemplary strength, at the back of such kind of a selling in the auto index overall, whether it's the, the main auto stocks or the auto ancillaries as well. This stock managed to outperform, and now when the markets are getting a bit of a stability or a recovery, I think Amara Raja Battery has shown signs of a breakout. I think that's a very positive sign for the stock price trend overall. Also, I think on daily charts, there are some technical triggers like an ADX coming into positive territory for Amara Raja Battery, and I think that should play a substantial positive for the stock price. Hence, I would suggest a strong buy. Targets of 690 range on Amara Raja Battery and stop is to be kept at 642.
Okay, that's Kunal's recommendation on Amara Raja. He has a buy target at 688. And Vivek, Hero MotoCorp, big outperformance seen over there today after the numbers.
Well, that's right, Mubina. It will come as a bit of a surprise to most of our viewers, given the fact that the numbers themselves were marginally just in line with what the street was anticipating. However, you have to read a little bit more into these numbers. The first thing what has actually happened is that, number one, the management guidance is something that has been positive. They've actually said at this point of time they're expecting some sort of recovery in the second half of the year. They're also saying that inventory levels are something that have dropped down quite significantly. And the other thing that they're saying at this point of time is that a pre-festive demand, they are seeing some signs of recovery as far as demand is concerned. On the back of the positive commentary given by the management, you're actually seeing the stock outperform significantly today, up almost 4.5% in the session.
Okay, now let's just take a look at the RWI small case index and see what it is up to, given the fact that the Nifty momentarily today slipped below the 11,000 mark. And interesting to note that the RWI small case index is actually bucking the trend. It's higher by a good 0.25%, so that's pretty impressive, indicating that, hey, the stocks and sectors that are representative of the Indian economy, having diverse representation from sectors like financial services, from sectors like consumer discretionary, still seem to be managing to stay afloat. So I think that's an interesting trend that you are seeing. It's higher by about 0.25%. Quick break right here on the show, but do come right back. We'll continue flagging off more movers and shakers. Welcome back. You're watching Market Fatafat on ET. Now let's quickly continue with the countdown then. And Gaurav, Alembic Pharma today is seeing some upside movement. Regardless of what's happening in the markets, it's a nice 3% rise. Anything that you're observing?
Basically, in case of Alembic Pharma, 550, 560 is acting as a strong resistance zone. Over there, the stock formed a large bearish outside bar recently and tumbled down sharply in the last session. Though today it is bouncing back, I think this is an opportunity to exit from the counter. Even the short-term momentum indicators are indicating further downside going ahead. So the recommendation over here is to exit from the counter, and on the downside, the stock can tumble down to 465, 460 over next few sessions.
All right, that's Alembic Pharma, more than 3% higher. And Vaibhav Global, it's interesting to know that despite whatever is happening in the market, this stock continues to make new multi-month highs. And today as well, after that bit of a dip that we saw, immediately post-market open, look at the recovery. It's set back now at the day's high of 895 rupees. Now, the revenue from operations on a consolidated basis has managed to rise a good 13% at 440 crore rupees. But it was not just good performance on the top line. Even on the bottom line, they managed to do well. A 20% rise in the profit after tax, aided of course by the margin and that stellar top line figure as well. So Vaibhav Global continues to be an outperformer. Vivek, Axis Bank today, big loser on the Nifty.
Well, that's right, Mubina. Mubina, going into earnings season, especially post the stellar results of ICICI Bank, a lot of expectations were built into Axis Bank as well. However, the Axis Bank, while the numbers were operationally quite good, what actually disappointed the street was the kind of provisioning as well as the kind of stressed asset book that the company, the bank has alluded to. In fact, they have given further provisioning details, and there have been a few loans that have been downgraded to the BB category. Now, what they're saying is that what JP Morgan is saying is that the stress book disclosure is something that is comforting at this point of time. However, the stress book itself is something that they need to look at quite closely. They're also saying that credit cost is something that could stay elevated in FY20, which is why you're seeing Axis Bank come off quite sharply in today's trading session.
Well, yeah, more than 3% of losses on Axis Bank in trade. And Gaurav, metal index attempting a bit of a rebound, especially the steel stocks. But should traders read much into this?
I think it's just a short-term bounce and nothing much more than that. In case of JSW Steel in particularly, it's forming wave extension on the downside as per the daily and weekly chart. And today's bounce is just a wave 4 pullback, which means that once the pullback is done, we can witness the next leg on the downside, which will be wave 5 on the downside. And it can test the recent low of 220. So the recommendation in case of JSW Steel will be to sell at current level with stop loss at 245 and target on the downside will be 220.
Okay, so Gaurav does believe that this is just a short-term bounce, nothing much to read into this. Choppers stop and look at the way that stock is slumping. It's a more than 7% fall. This after the company has shown an absolutely flat top line, 854 crores versus 850, so nothing impressive on the top line. And even on the bottom line, it's something that's very disappointing. 10 lakh rupees of a loss, versus a profit of 4.5 to 5 crore rupees. So it's certainly something that's very, very disappointing. Shoppers Stop any which ways has been struggling quite a bit. So you must watch out for Shoppers Stop in trade. Kunal, Federal Bank, what are you observing here?
So the stock has now bounced back, Mubina, from its, I think lows, which was below the 200 moving average. But what's more important is on the weekly charts, there is this rising trend line which started, I think, from the last 1.5 or 2 years back when the stock had touched those levels of 75, 80 levels. Now from there on, it's been moving on. There were 2 attempts towards trying to take support at those levels, and this is the 3rd attempt where the stock is trying to take support at those 90, 92 levels. So I believe that these are very important levels for Federal Bank on the longer term chart structure, not just on the short term charts. If the stock holds on to this levels of closer to 90 plus or minus 3-4 rupees, then I believe that there is a strong case of a longer term revival for the stock price. So I think traders should try and take positions accordingly, looking at the way the chart structure is positioned on the weekly charts.
Well, a nice uptick in Federal Bank today in trade. DLF, meantime, Vivek, what does CLSA have to say?
Well, what CLSA is saying as far as DLF numbers are concerned is that number one, they are quite satisfied, quite pleased with the sales as well as lease income trend. They're saying that this trend is on an uptick for quite some time now. The other thing that they're saying is that the deleveraging is something that continues as far as the promoter holding concerns, as well as the kind of infusion that the promoters have done into the company. However, what was actually disappointed is the fact that the P&L was something that was way below estimates, and this on the back of the fact that the company did not have enough sales going into their residential business, on the back of which they could not book enough revenues. What they're also saying is that going forward, the development company sales as well as the new launches are something that they need to look at. However, CLSA feels that at this point of time, the new sales as well as the demand is something that seems quite distant, which is why they are quite cautious as far as DLF is concerned.
All right, well, it's still 3% down for DLF in trade. And Gaurav, some private sector banks, IndusInd Bank, Yes Bank, these are showing a bit of a bounce today in trade, supporting the market. What do you make of this 3% rise in IndusInd?
I think despite of the bounce, the overall trend continues to be down. Talking about IndusInd Bank in particular, it's forming lower top, lower bottom of the daily chart, which is a bearish sign as per the Dow theory. Until the time the bearish formation continues, I think the stock can continue to head lower. The swing high, which happens to be high of an engulfing bear candle, will be the key level to watch out for. The level is around 1448. So unless that gets taken out on the upside, the stock can head for the equality target on the downside, which is as low as 1200.
Okay, that's Gaurav's observation on IndusInd Bank. Balkrishna Papers, you know, this is a stock that we don't talk about very often, but today it's worth mentioning it because of the massive fall seen in the stock. It's a more than 11% decline. This after the first quarter numbers, which show that the revenues have come in at 46.6 crores. It's a drop of 18.2% compared to the corresponding quarter. There's a loss as well on the bottom line, though mind you, that has still remained restricted to 10 crore rupees versus what it delivered in the corresponding quarter of more than 11.3 crore rupees. Definitely not good numbers, and you are seeing the stock price duly react. It's down by more than 11.5%. And Kunal, Biocon, you continue to remain optimistic. What's the reason?
In fact, Mubina, I believe that the stock is now on the verge of a breaking of its key supports. These are multi-month, multi-week supports for Biocon, and you know, on one hand, the pharma stocks are trying to make a comeback. So you know, Eicher, Sun Pharma, then you know, names like DV Slab, Dr. Reddy, they are trying to show some bit of a strength. But Biocon on the other hand has been showing signs of weakness, and the fact that the stock has broken yet another swing low on the short and medium term charts close to that 232, 233 level, I believe could result into another 10 to 15 rupee drop on the stock price. So revising my targets lower on Biocon to almost 210 to 15 range.
Okay, at 226 rupees, Kunal is pretty optimistic. And this is what he is recommending on a Biocon. Okay, and Vivek, Jubilant Life, an interesting bulk deal over here that is providing some support to the stock today. Who are the participants?
Well, that's right, Mubina. Jubilant Life has seen some interesting corporate developments that are happening. The company is also planning to undergo a demerger. But yesterday, you know, some marquee investors running marquee funds, especially Eastbridge Capital, has bought almost 12.5 lakh shares in a block deal. 435 rupees a share is the kind of price that they paid for it. And even more importantly, you know, and very interestingly, Rare Enterprises run by marquee investor Rakesh Jhunjhunwala himself has gone ahead and bought almost 17 lakh shares in this particular stock. So Jubilant Life, on the back of very interesting block deals where marquee investors have checked into this particular counter, is in news today.
Okay, that is Jubilant Life. Some support seen in the stock price, higher by 0.9%. Okay, and Gaurav, Titan, what a drop seen in that stock as well. Though mind you, it's recovered a tad bit from the day's low. What do you recommend traders do?
The Titan was trading in sideways manner for last few sessions. In terms of price pattern, it formed a running triangular pattern on the hourly chart and broke out on the downside. And today we are witnessing follow through on the downside. So overall, I think the stock can head lower to test its daily lower Bollinger Band, which is near 988. So even at current level, one can initiate a fresh short position with stop loss at 1094 and target on the downside will be 988.
Clear cut sell on Titan from Gaurav. DHFL, and this one is, well, not exactly buzzing too much, but there's an ET now exclusive with respect to an update on the final resolution plan. As per sources, DHFL has submitted the final resolution plan to the COC, or the Committee of Creditors, and they will be taking a final call on the plan in the first week of August. So maybe this week or next week. Now remember, the plan includes getting a strategic PE investor and reducing Vadhavan's stake to less than that of 10%, which we at ET now as well had reported to you earlier itself. We are waiting by now for the deal, which is expected anytime between this week and next week. And Kunal, UltraTech Cement is seeing a lot of volatility in trade. Anything that you would like to flag off for our trade for viewers?
So I think a couple of cement stocks today have managed to break their support levels. I had flagged off UltraTech Cement last week when the stock was at 4,400. Indicating that there is some, a technical pattern, which in technical terms is called as an Ichimoku pattern. That pattern had given a breakdown for, the stock price at 4,400 levels, and it generally results into short-term weaknesses. Now the stock has broken, to levels of 4,200, 4,250 where it's currently trading. But I believe that if this, 4,400 resistance doesn't break, then I believe the stock can drag a bit lower from current levels as well.
All right, that is UltraTech Cement for you. But with that, we are out of time. So Gaurav, thank you for sharing your technical strategies. And Kunal and Vivek, thank you as well. We'll see you back right here at 1:30 with a whole new batch of stocks that will be the big movers and shakers in the market today. For now, we'll wrap it up.